Project comes with a huge variety of views that you can work with and that you can print. We've predominantly spent our time in a view called the Gantt chart, which is what you see here. Now, to switch between the variety of views that Project offers, you can be doing this in a number of ways. One way you could do it is to bring up the view bar, and we touched on this in an earlier video, but let's look at it again. On the left-hand side of Project where it says Gantt chart, you can right-click and you can switch to a view listed here. Or you could bring up the view bar and use the view bar to switch between a variety of views. Alternatively, I'll just turn the view bar off. Alternatively, you could go to the View tab in the ribbon and you could get at a number of views using these Task View options or Resource View options. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with the method of using this button here. When we customized the Quick Access toolbar and we went into the Customize Quick Access toolbar button, we were able to say that we wanted to see a variety of views by turning on View. By turning on the View option, I can now switch from the Gantt chart to perhaps the calendar view, which we looked at in an earlier video, or even the network diagram, which we looked at in an earlier video. But let's look at it in more detail. I'm going to go back to the Gantt chart. On the left-hand side, we have what's called a table, and I've mentioned on a few occasions now this is the entry table. But what we can do on the View tab in the ribbon is go to the Tables button, and we can change it from being the entry table to being perhaps the work table. The work table then gives us a list of tasks, but it actually explains how many hours will be worked on each task. Another table that might be useful is the cost table. The cost table again gives us a list of all the tasks, and it shows us the costs for each task, the total costs and the fixed costs. So there's a variety of tables that we can select using the Tables button on the View tab. I'm just going to put it back to the entry table. Now, in addition to changing the table in the Gantt chart, we can also go to other views such as the Task Usage view. The Task Usage view focuses on the task and who will be working on each task. For example, if I look at Plan House Paint, I can see that 63 hours will be worked on this task and all 63 will be performed by the painter. If I scroll to tasks using the Scroll to Task button I added to my Quick Access toolbar, I can then see how that time is actually distributed over a particular week or over a particular month. And as I click on each task, I can scroll to task and see how the time is actually distributed. If I'd like to see the cost as well as the work, what I can do is I can right-click the duration column and I can insert the column Cost by pressing C. If I insert the cost column, I can then not only see the total number of hours that we worked on each task, but also what that's costing me. You can also show the cost on the right-hand side simply by right-clicking and choosing the option Cost. I can now see exactly who's working on a task, what the total hours will be, what the total cost will be, and how that time and that cost is distributed over time. If I right-click, I can turn on and turn off a number of options here, so I'll take off the cost. So the Task Usage view is very good and can be customized. You've also got an alternative view called Resource Usage. The Resource Usage view doesn't focus on the task, instead it focuses on the resource. So here is the resource labourer, for example, and these are all the tasks that the labourer will be working on. So the labourer will get a list of tasks that they're working on and how many hours they're to spend on each task, and therefore how many hours in total they'll be dedicating to this project. Again, if I use the Scroll to Task button, I can see how those hours are distributed over time. If I want to see the cost, again I could insert the column Cost, or I could hit this Add New Column and choose Cost in the list. And I can see how much is totally costing me. So the labourer is going to spend a total of 252 hours on this project and cost me a total of $4,536. But I can see how that time and that cost is distributed. If I right click over here and choose Cost, it will show me how that time is distributed and how that cost is distributed over time. I can right click again and turn off Cost, and I can right click the Cost column and hide that column. So the resource usage is very useful to show me a resource and what they'll be doing, and the task usage view is very good to show me a task and who will be working on it. Another view that we might come back to, and we've looked at earlier, is the resource sheet view. When I go to the resource sheet view, this view we typically use to create our resources, and so this is the entry table. But if I wanted to, I could go to the view tab and I could go to tables again, and I could change it from being the entry table to perhaps the work table. Then I have a summary of exactly the total number of hours each resource will be dedicating to this particular project. If I went to tables and chose cost, I would then get a summary of exactly how much each resource was costing me on this project. So each table can have a different view, and I'll put it back to the entry table, which is what we typically work with. I'll then go back to the Gantt chart and I return to my Gantt. There is one other view I should probably show you, and that's the resource graph. If I click the drop down and choose the resource graph, this is actually showing me plasterboard, so I actually want to go to a resource such as Painter to see what they're actually doing on this particular project. What I'm seeing here is the painter is doing 9 hours each of these days, starting the week of the 12th of June. But if I right click, I can actually say don't show me work, show me cost. And so that's how much it's costing me each day. I could right click and I could ask for work availability and a number of different options. So it's worth having a look at the different things that the resource graph will show you. And then again I'll switch back to the view Gantt chart. So there are a huge number of views in project, and it's really just a matter of creating a project that makes sense to you and actually looking at all the different views and seeing what they give you. Now coming back to the actual Gantt chart, what I want to do now is customize this a little bit. So I'm going to go to the Format tab in the ribbon. First thing I want to do is I want to look at the critical path, and this is a box you can tick. If I tick critical path and look at my Gantt chart, you can see that some tasks have gone red and some of the tasks remain blue. Those tasks that have gone red, they are critical tasks, and basically their end date cannot be changed or extended in any way without affecting the end date of the project. Those tasks that are not critical, they can have their end date extended to a point, and they won't impact the end date of the project. So any task where you can change the end date, extend it, and it doesn't affect the project's end date is a non-critical task. A task can start out as non-critical and end up critical. So be aware of that as well. The other thing you can do besides turning on the critical path is you can also turn on the slack. And if I click this, this is also known as float, and it basically visually indicates how far that particular task can move before it becomes critical and therefore starts affecting the end date of the project. So we can turn on the critical task and we can turn on the slack.